Hi children! Gosh, it's week 3 already of our kindness course. Wow, this is going really quick. So what have we learnt so far? We've learnt that God and Jesus call us to be kind to each other, and that Jesus calls us to give everything we've got, really. And so that, I think, leads us quite nicely into what we're going to look at today, which is generosity. And generosity, I think, in kindness, is giving more than is necessary. So I've got a video for you today, which is called God's Generosity. And if you have a look at this, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat about generosity in a moment.
God's story, generosity. So part of God's story is about how he wants us to be generous, and it goes like this. Being generous means sharing what you have. It's something God has always asked his followers to do. Remember how God built a special family called the Israelites? They were his very first followers. He taught them what to do by giving them laws, like giving 10% of everything they had back to God. That's called tithing. God even said to test him. If they obeyed and were generous with what he gave them, he would give them exactly what they needed. See, God is generous, and he wants us to be like him. He sent his greatest treasure, his son Jesus, to earth. Jesus left the kingdom of heaven and gave up his life to rescue us so that one day we can be a part of God's kingdom and live in it with him forever. Basically, Jesus gave up everything for us. Anyway, when Jesus was here, he showed us even more about being generous. In fact, Jesus said we can not only give a tithe, but we can give way more than that. We can give thirsty people water and hungry people food. We can visit people who are lonely and pray for people who are hurting. He did that all the time. He said when we do that, it's like we're giving to him. Jesus actually told us when we're generous, we show him we love him. He said, your heart will always be where your treasure is. That's a fancy way of saying you spend your money on what you care about. In the Bible, one day, a rich guy came up to Jesus and asked what he could do to live forever in God's kingdom. Jesus said, go and sell everything you have. Give the money to those who are poor. You will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. Jesus wants us to follow him with our whole hearts and care about him more than anything. Unfortunately, the man went away sad because he couldn't put his treasure in heaven. He loved the stuff he had on earth too much. Another time, Jesus watched people give offerings at the temple. One woman only put in a few small coins, but Jesus told his disciples, that poor widow has put more into the offering box than all the others. They all gave a lot because they are rich, but she gave even though she is poor. She put in everything she had. That was all she had to live on. The widow gave everything to Jesus, just like Jesus gave everything to us. Like the rich guy and the poor widow, all of us have different ways we can give. The Bible actually says we should give what we want. After all, God loves a cheerful giver. When we share joyfully with others, we're showing love to God. Our generosity shows Jesus how much we love him, just like his generosity shows how much he loves us. And that's the story of generosity. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. God asks us to be generous. He wants us to be like him. God sent Jesus to us. Jesus gave up his life. Jesus showed us how to give. We give to things we care about. The rich guy cared about his stuff. The poor woman cared about Jesus. Jesus cares about us. We can love Jesus back by being generous. And that's a part of God's story.
So that video was talking about generosity and how Jesus had given everything for us and how we're called to be generous to others to show how we love Jesus and God. So I was thinking this week, what could you give generously? Now, I'm not just talking about money. It can be little tiny things. It could be a smile. It could be your time. It could be a kind word. It could be your talents. So it could be, as it said in the video, water and food to people in need. So can you have a think this week? What have you got that you could give gladly and joyfully, because God loves a joyful giver, to somebody to help them, whether it's to cheer them up or to give them food or just to show them that God loves them? Because when we show people kindness, we're showing God that we love him, but we can also be showing people that God loves them. And in that way, Jesus shows us how he loves us. So let's do our craft that maybe we could give to people. So biscuit decorating. So you could decorate a biscuit like this. There we go. So what do we need? We need some plain biscuits, like digestives or maybe rich tea or something like that. You will need some icing sugar. There we go. Icing sugar in a bowl like that. Ooh. I know there's some children that don't like icing sugar, so maybe you could get some chocolate and melt that in the microwave and you could decorate it with chocolates. If you want to, you could add food colouring like this, or this to your icing to make it different colours. That's what I've done with my red icing here. I added some red food colouring, or you could just keep it white. That's up to you. You will need some water and probably a measuring spoon. There's my tablespoon measure there. And then you'll need some things to decorate. I've got some edible flowers and some different sweets and things. Maybe you've got some sprinkles, chocolate sprinkles or something. Or if you've got a bar of chocolate, you can actually grate the chocolate and it looks really sort of swirly and pretty. You could do something like that. So how are we going to decorate our biscuits? So I already have my icing sugar poured out in my bowl. I'm going to add, let's move that over there so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to add probably not a tablespoon, a teaspoon measure. You could use a teaspoon like this, or if you've got a teaspoon measure, then use that. And just get some water and sprinkle it on, not too much, and then stir it into the icing. Give it a good stir. Doesn't need much water. If you make it too runny, it's going to run everywhere and be really, really sticky. Obviously, if it is too runny, you can always add more icing sugar out of the packet. So here we go. Let's mix that in. So I'm mixing that up. Just get all the bits out of the corner. Mix that round. And then when it's all mixed and ready, you can take a spoonful and put it onto your biscuit like that, and then spread it like that. There we go. You see that? There we go. So there's my white icing. There we go. If you wanted colour icing, let's go for some blue here. You'd just put a little drop in there. Probably put the icing in, the food colouring into the icing before you add the water. Otherwise it might be too liquidy. And as you can see there, it's going nice and blue. There we go. Mix that in. Make it all the same colour. There you go. You don't have to add food colouring if you don't like food colouring. Just do it white icing, or like I said, you could do chocolate. So this time I'm going to do a blue one. This is a bit runny. You might want to add some more icing sugar so that it doesn't run everywhere. There we go, the blue one. There we go. So spread your icing sugar all around. I'll just quickly do another blue one. You could do orange icing or pink or yellow. See how many different colours you could come up with. There we go. Just enough there. And spread that on like that. There we go. Brilliant. And then using your sprinkles or your sweeties. So I've got some flowers. I'm going to make a flowery one. And I've made 4 because there are 4 other people in my family than me, and I'm going to give them to each of my family. Now you might want to do it for neighbours, or maybe you know a friend who isn't very well, who could do with some cheering up. I'm using marshmallows here on this one, and a few sweeties. There we go. A couple of sprinkles, chocolate sprinkly bits. There we go. Can you see that? That's what I've got so far. Whoops, nearly dropped them all off. And then I've got some Skittles as well that I'm using on here. And you decorate your biscuits and then share them with people. And that is an act of kindness that you could do this week, is sharing your biscuits with people in your neighbourhood, your friends, your family. There you go. Whoops. And it's quite apt, I think, that I've used the colours because we are going to do the rainbow song after this. I hope you've had fun. I hope that you've enjoyed biscuit making, and I will see you next week. So, goodbye.